Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Assembly Judiciary. Welcome to everyone here in Carson City, as well as anyone, there's no one there in Las Vegas, I don't believe, but anyone watching on YouTube or Nellis right now. With that, Committee Secretary, will you please take the roll?
Assembly members Cole, here. Dahlia, here. Gonzalez, here. Gray, here. Hanson, here. Hardy, here. LaRue Hatch, here. Marzola, present. Moore, here. Nadeem, Orenlicker, here. Roth, here. Urick, here. Chair Miller.
Here, and please mark Assembly Member Nadeem absent excused. With that, just a few reminders before we start going through the agenda today. We will have 2 bills and a work session. Just want to remind everyone, please turn down the volume on your electronics. Also, we will have public comment at the end of today's meeting. For anyone wishing to make public comment or testify on any bill, just want to remind you to please state your name and spell it for the record. Also asking that you keep your comments to 2 minutes each. Also for our presenters today for the bills, that you please make sure that you try to keep your presentations to 15 minutes each. Those calling or wishing to testify by phone, the phone number is posted on the agenda, which is on Nellis. The phone number is 888-475-4499, and today's meeting ID is 848-269-17736. And with that, we will go ahead and begin with our work session. As you see, we have, Ms. O'Krent is not with us today, but we have someone returning with us. So whenever you're ready, could you please walk us through Assembly Bill 34? Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody walk us through Assembly Bill 34. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Miller. For the record, Cesar Magarejo, Committee Policy Analyst. For the record, I can't neither, as nonpartisan staff, I can neither support nor oppose any of the measures that come before this committee. The first bill on the work session is Assembly Bill 34, which is sponsored by this committee on behalf of the Attorney General. Assembly Bill 34 expands the list of offenses classified as violent or sexual offenses and expands the list of sexual offenses. There is an amendment that was submitted by the Office of the Attorney General, which amends Section 1 to address sexual conduct between certain individuals associated with entities providing services to children and the children under the care, custody, control, or supervision of those entities. And Madam Chair, that's all the amendments.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions? Not seeing any, I will take a motion to amend and do pass.
So moved.
I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Assembly Member LaRue Hatch. With that, any other additional comments or questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the motion carries. I will assign that floor statement to Assembly Member LaRue Hatch.
Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair Miller. The next bill is Assembly Bill 35, which revises provisions relating to pornography involving minors. It was sponsored by this committee on behalf of the Attorney General. And there is an amendment that was submitted by the Attorney General, which deletes sections 1 through 5 of the bill and makes conforming changes necessary to eliminate references to section 1 throughout the remaining sections of the bill. And that's all the amendments.
Thank you. Members, any questions or comments? Not seeing any, I will entertain a motion to amend and do pass.
So moved.
I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Assembly Member Gonzalez. Any additional questions or comments? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the motion carries. I will assign that floor statement to Assembly Member Cole. You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair Miller. Next bill is Assembly Bill 45. This bill Sponsored by this committee on behalf of the Attorney General, Assembly Bill 45 renames the Committee on Domestic Violence to the Committee on Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault to reflect its expanded duties, responsibilities, and scope of issues related to sexual assault. There is an amendment that was submitted by the Attorney General, and the amendment updates the terminology in Section 1 of subsection 1, replacing the specific reference to the Victim Information Notification Everyday System with the more general term, a Victim Notification System. That's all the amendments.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Not seeing any, I will entertain a motion to amend and do pass.
So moved.
I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second from Assemblymember Moore. Any additional questions or comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? And the motion passes. I will assign that floor statement to Assemblymember Delia. You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair Miller. Next bill is Assembly Bill 193, sponsored by Assemblymember Koenig. This bill requires law enforcement agency, upon written request by a victim of domestic violence, to furnish free, complete, and unaltered copies of all agency reports concerning domestic violence. And there is an amendment which adds Assembly members Gonzalez, Hardy, and Moore as co-sponsors of the bill. And that's it.
Members, any additional questions or comments? Not seeing any, I will entertain a motion to amend and do pass. I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola. Do I have a second? Second. Second from Assemblymember Gonzalez. Any additional questions or comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, and I will assign that floor statement to Assemblymember Koenig. All right, thank you so much, members. With that, we will go on to our first bill presentation. Today, we have Assembly Bill 199, which revises provisions relating to firearms. So Assembly Member, give you all a few minutes to get settled, and then whenever you are ready, please again make sure that you all introduce yourself, state your name, and please spell it for the record, but whenever you are ready, please proceed.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and esteemed members of the Assembly most judicious, most just Judiciary Committee. My name is Ruben De Silva, and I am here to introduce Assembly Bill 199, a legislative proposal aimed at enhancing public safety by addressing certain issues pertaining to firearms within our communities. I would like to acknowledge my co-presenters, Mr. John Jones from the Clark County DA's office and Detective Adrian Hunt from LVMPD, who will be detailing the intent of the legislation and walking us through the bill. After this presentation, I do have to head to GA. I have another bill presentation this morning, but I am sure that I'm leaving this bill in the very capable hands of Mr. Jones and Detective Hunt. Under current Nevada law, the offense of discharging a firearm in certain circumstances requires proof that the act was committed maliciously and wantonly. This standard can present challenges in prosecution, as it necessitates demonstrating the specific intent behind the discharge. AB 199 seeks to amend this by removing the malicious and wanton language, thereby focusing on the act of negligent discharge itself, regardless of intent. This change aims to hold individuals accountable for careless behavior that certainly endangers public safety. Assembly Bill 199 also introduces significant revisions to Nevada's juvenile justice statutes concerning firearms-related offenses. The bill enhances the consequences for minors who unlawfully handle firearms, reflecting a commitment to addressing juvenile involvement in such activities. The impetus for this legislation arises from an increasing concern over incidents where individuals discharge firearms in dangerous and negligent ways, and also, to be quite frank, the growing concern within our communities of guns being unlawfully handled by young people. We believe both these issues pose significant risks to public safety. By refining the legal framework to address both these issues directly and enhancing the associated consequences, we aim to reduce such occurrences and promote a safer environment for all Nevadans. And as I've discussed with the chair already, criminal justice issues are not wholly in my area of expertise, and I would like to acknowledge the chair for helping to negotiate this bill between all interested parties. I know that there is an amendment, and it's, to put it quite frankly and blatantly, it's mad complicated with a lot of color and lines through it. But we do have some individuals here, Mr. Jones in particular, who will be able to walk through that amendment. It was again negotiated between many different parties who were involved in this issue, and also I'd like to thank the chair for helping with these negotiations. And with that said, I want to punt the presentation over to Detective Hunt.
Good morning, Chair, committee members. Detective Adrian Hunt, ADRIANHUNT. I represent the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. I want to start by thanking everyone who has worked hard with us on this bill. It is a priority for our sheriff and most importantly for our community. The goal of this bill is to increase penalties for illegal firearm discharges and juvenile firearm possession. Many of you know that I have a special connection to our youth in the Las Vegas Valley. I've been mentoring youth since 1999 through various organizations. LVMPD is committed to improving the lives of our youth through mentorship and continued support. This bill addresses the need for public safety, reducing gun violence, and preventing minors from accessing firearms. We are urging support for this bill, which we also include an accountability component. Gun violence and illegal shootings have been rising in our communities as of 2024. There have been 2,688 incidents of shootings of shots fired, 3,944 cartridge cases recovered, 122 gunfire victims, and 94 firearms recovered. Additionally, from January to July 2024, there have been 281 cases of juveniles in possessions of firearms, 93 with no prior offenses and 188 with prior offenses. Our agency has been utilizing cutting-edge ShotSpotter gunshot technology since November 2019, which has been a great help to us. Our sheriff's goal is to make our agency one of the most technologically advanced in the country. To help reduce juvenile firearm possession, our department has partnered with community organizations and leaders to launch the DREAM program. DREAM stands for Discover, Redirect, Empower, Advocate, and Mentor. This 12-week program focuses on mentorship and personal development for at-risk teens, teaching critical decision-making skills and the consequences of their actions. Our agency is dedicated to finding ways to work with organizations to reduce gun violence. We follow strategies outlined in the book Bleeding Out by Thomas Apt, which highlights a new approach of urban violence called pulling lever strategy. This method combines focused deterrence, community engagement, and collaboration between law enforcement and community leaders such as Pastor Troy, a longtime respected community partner with our police department who will be joining us shortly to testify in support. I would now like to hand it over to my co-presenter, District Attorney John Jones, who will walk you through the details of the bill.
Thank you, Chair Miller, members of the Assembly Judiciary Committee. My name is John Jones, and I'm here on behalf of the Nevada District Attorneys Association. I'll be walking us through the bill with the amendment. The amendment was submitted by Assembly Member De Silva, and it is a product of a collaboration between the Public Defender's Office, Metro, Assembly Member De Silva, and myself. I will say, Chair, I do need to apologize at the onset of this because in reviewing the amendment yesterday, there were two omissions in the amendment that I'll discuss as I go through the presentation today. So in Section 1 of AB 199, we are not making any changes with respect to that amendment. So we're intending it to read as is. And what the proposed amendment to Section 1 does is it removes malicious wantonly from the discharging statute that deals with negligent discharge. So in other words, now, if you negligently discharge a firearm, you would be guilty of a misdemeanor. Currently, there's also additional element who maliciously or wantonly discharge, which provides 3 different intent levels in one statute, which complicates the statute. Since we're making those changes, we're also removing unless a greater penalty is provided by NRS 202-287. That's a discharging from statute, which has a maliciously or wantonly element to it. Because we're removing those intents from this statute, it's no longer an analog, and we don't need that language in Section 1 anymore. I hope that makes sense. In Section 2, the bill makes changes to our aiming a firearm at a human being statute. What AB 199 does is it splits this current crime into three distinct crimes. In Section 2, subsection 1, it prescribes a penalty for aiming a firearm at a human being. While there is some new language in here, is guilty of a gross misdemeanor, I can tell you that there is no real change to law or policy in Section 2, sub 1. It's just some reordering based on the amendments that are to come. In Section 2, this is the current discharging statute. It removes firearm from subsection 2. Thus, if you discharge a pneumatic weapon or throw a deadly missile, it's punished by a gross misdemeanor. Again, the only real change here is removing firearm. Every other statement in here is current law and current policy. It's just reordered to be consistent with what we're doing in the new subsection 3. So in Section 2, subsection 3 is what will be the new discharging statute. And so anybody who discharges a firearm either in an area designated as a populated area, and it is typically county commissions who designate populated areas, or in any place where a person might be endangered, would now be guilty of a Category C felony. That is an increase from current law where discharging a firearm is a gross misdemeanor in these areas. So there's two things I want to point out with respect to this crime. We are dealing with willful and unlawful discharges of firearms. We are not talking about accidental discharges of firearms, and we are not talking about firearms when a firearm is discharged in self-defense. In other words, if you are responding to a lawful, you are responding to an application of deadly force and you discharge a firearm, that is a lawful act, and you would not be covered by this statute. So I just want to make that clear. We are dealing with willful and unlawful discharges of firearms, either that endanger persons or occur in a populated area. And Chair, I can tell you that as part of this research, I did look to see what other states do with respect to discharging a firearm, specifically our surrounding states. And I can tell you that in Arizona, unlawful discharge of firearm within a municipality is a Class 6 felony. The punishment scheme is a little different there, but ultimately, the time in prison would be about the same as contemplated by AB 199. Further, Utah. Again, the statutes read a little differently than ours, but it is a felony if a person may be endangered by the discharge of a firearm. Oregon. Unlawful discharge is a Category C felony. All of these are similar to what we're proposing in AB 199. Further, California has a negligent discharge of a firearm where you willfully discharge in a grossly negligent manner. Now that's interesting because in California, prosecutors can charge the crime as either a misdemeanor or a felony. Now, California does not have a gross misdemeanor, so a misdemeanor in California is punished similarly to a gross misdemeanor in Nevada. So now we're getting to some changes that we made pursuant to our negotiations with the public defenders, and that's in Section 3. Pursuant to our amendment, and this is the first omission from the amendment, we are proposing to delete Section 3 in its entirety. So Section 3 will no longer be part of the bill. In its place, we have language from the amendment submitted by Assemblymember De Silva. And that first amendment is to propose a change to NRS 62C060. This is current law in Nevada. And what it says is that a juvenile court judge can't release an individual who was caught possessing a firearm on school grounds or using or threaten the use of a firearm until a risk assessment has been done, until an evaluation has been had of that juvenile to figure out what is going wrong. What we propose to do with 199 is expand that and require that any possession of a firearm discovered by law enforcement and they ultimately decide to arrest the juvenile, a judge would have to order that evaluation prior to the release of the child. So generally, there are three situations in when this would apply. If the child is found carrying or possessing any firearm, but not a pneumatic gun. And a pneumatic gun is a pellet gun, a BB gun, those types of things. If they're found possessing or carrying a pneumatic weapon while on school grounds. So if they have a pellet gun, a BB gun on school grounds, then this assessment would now be required. And the third would be possessing or carrying a pneumatic weapon or firearm while they're involved with another unlawful act. So with a robbery, if they have a pellet gun is involved in a robbery, this assessment would now be required. Under current law, in most of these circumstances, except for on school grounds, these assessments are discretionary. This would make them mandatory. And the point of them is to get evaluated by a professional to see if there's controlled substance issues, gang issues, what issue is going on that helped drive the particular offense in the case at hand. So we're hoping that we get better results with more information. Additionally, when you look at the old Section 3, the language that we're proposing to strike, you'll notice that right now, a child who is arrested for a firearm offense has to do 200 hours of community service. Originally, this bill proposed to expand that to between 200 and 600 hours. And this bill got a discussion going between the public defenders and the DAs about opportunities for children and community service. We're having difficulty in the juvenile justice system finding appropriate community service for juveniles. It's just a fact that is occurring. And I do have Ms. Duffy down south who can expand on this if you have particular questions about this issue. So pursuant to the discussion, the public defenders and I revisited a proposal from last session, that being SB 359. And what amendments 2 through 7 of our proposed amendment do is basically place SB 359 from last session into AB 199 to expand community service opportunities for juveniles. And the intent of this is to focus on, as Amendment 2 describes, community-based activities that facilitate civic engagement between the juvenile and the community. And this includes volunteerism, activism, school clubs designed to build leadership skills and opportunities for that child. So even though we're not necessarily expanding the number of hours that a child has to do community service, we're hoping that with these amendments that they'll have more opportunities for growth and realizing their potential. Amendment 3 allows for job skills training to count for a portion of community service. Amendment 4 makes some changes to the truancy statutes, and Amendments 5, 6, and 7 changes shall to may and leaves it up to a juvenile court's discretion with respect to revoking a driver's license. So with that, Chair Miller, that is the bill with our amendment. So the two provisions that are not listed in the amendment are the deletion of Section 3 in its entirety. And the second is in Section 2, subsection 3, there's currently a tiered penalty in statute. It says for the first offense, it's a Category C felony. For the second or subsequent, it would be a B, 2 to 15. We are proposing to eliminate the second or subsequent punishment. So the punishment for an illegal discharge would always be a Category C felony. With that, Chair, I believe we're happy to answer any questions. If you have a juvenile question, I've got Ms. Duffy down south, and we're at your pleasure.
Thank you so much. We will open up questions. Our first one is from Assemblymember Roth.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you so much for the presentation. I really appreciate, we have heard a lot of bills in the last 24 hours really trying to tackle this issue of gun violence in our communities and our schools, and especially with our juveniles. And so one thing we did hear in one of the bill hearings last night was a lot of data on AB 245, really looking at how we can actually prevent guns ending up in the hands of juveniles to begin with. And please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Metro was opposed to that bill. But do you have any data that shows that this solution, is this an evidence-based solution as opposed to AB 245?
Adrian Hunt for the record. We were opposed to that bill, I believe, well, I know for a specific reason, and the reason was, again, we think our soldiers, the people who fight for us and die for this country, should be able to pretty much own a rifle or a firearm. That was the only reason that we did oppose that bill. But other than that, yes, overall, that is the issue at hand. We are seeing a huge uptick in our community with gun violence. And if you guys really had the chance to see what, and really delve into what's really going on with the youth, and how they're using this on IG, how they're using this to bully our kids in our community, is very sad. And I always say, until it affects you personally, it's never an issue until it affects you personally. And again, my son, I have my brother, a brother who has lost his life to gun violence, a younger brother. So this is near and dear to my heart. And again, I believe if there were stricter gun penalties where he was at as well, maybe this could have been avoided.
Thank you so much for that answer. And I agree, this is very personal for a lot of people. I have also lost someone in my family due to gun violence. And so, that's why keeping the guns out of especially juveniles' hands is so incredibly important to me. But is there data that shows that changing this statute specifically, do we have that data?
John Jones on behalf of the Nevada District Attorneys Association. I don't have data on respect to that issue, but what I can tell you is one of the reasons why we wanted to expand 62Z060 is because we want to get at why is that particular juvenile offending? What is there substance abuse issues? Are there gang issues? Are there other issues that are causing that offense? Because oftentimes it's personal to the individual being charged with the crime. So our hope is if we expand these assessments, we'll have a better understanding what's driving that particular juvenile to offend and hopefully intervene and keep them from reoffending.
Thank you for that. And I just would like to ask, before we proceed with questions, legal questions about yes, I was the only one here in 2017, so I was the only one who voted for Assembly Bill 118. And so, again, that hasn't been repealed, has it? Assembly Bill 118 from 2017, where we allowed our veterans and active duty and police officers under 21 to get a CCW? It was from Assemblymember Skip Daly, I know, because it almost passed, it was almost unanimous, and, yeah.
No, Chair, it has not.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, with that, we will move on to our next question from Assemblymember Cole.
All right, this is admittedly not a super technical question. And it's probably just because I've got the film tax thing happening in my brain and Alec Baldwin and the Russ scenario and whatnot. So just looking in Section 2, Sub 1, somebody aims a gun is a misdemeanor. Is that going to have an exclusion for if you're on a film set, or if you're on a film set, it's a misdemeanor if it's a real gun?
John Jones on behalf of the Nevada District Attorneys Association. 2 points I want to make. The first being that is already in statute, so this isn't really our AB 199 doesn't change any elements to that offense. That's the first point I want to make. The second is typically, I think as we all learned from the Rust fiasco, they're not supposed to be using real firearms on these sets. They're often fake or pneumatic. So I don't believe that the intent of that is captured in 202-290.
Ruben De Silva for the record. Assemblymember Cole, yeah, that is a good question. It's come up, because that's one of our pop culture kind of sort of examples of, something that's this bill is trying to address. But that's absolutely true what Mr. Jones said over here. I mean, on these sets, you're not supposed to have real weapons. That was, I think, one of the legal issues with that particular case itself. So I don't think that would really apply to this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So I just want to clarify, we have a clear line in the sand. If they are in any of our shows or anything, if they are using, if they use real weapons, then they will be charged. If they are using the pneumatic, then they are protected, if following those standards.
John Jones on behalf of the Nevada District Attorneys Association. That is clear. I think it willfully aims a gun, pistol, revolver, or other firearm toward another human being is guilty of a gross misdemeanor.
Thank you so much. Our next question will be from Assemblymember Ornlicker.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for this bill. I'm interested in section 2, sub 3. And I see you're proposing C and B felonies, which are pretty significant. And I notice, so that I'm curious about the logic and especially what your response to the public defender's proposal to keep it a gross misdemeanor.
John Jones on behalf of the Nevada District Attorneys Association. I'll point out we're proposing to delete the Category B felony. So the penalty would just be a Category C. And my response to that is we're trying to do what states around us are doing. Now, again, these statutes aren't perfectly aligned, but generally in other states, the penalty in AB 199 would be similar to what the penalty is in other surrounding states.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Gray.
Thank you. Good morning. Can you talk to me about the difference between a willful negligent discharge and an accidental discharge? I mean, in my vernacular, in the world I come from, if you didn't mean to pull that trigger, no matter what, it goes off, you're in trouble.
John Jones on behalf of Nevada District Attorneys Association. So you're referring to Section 1, the negligent discharge. All of these cases are very fact-specific. It's what evidence do I have, and with the evidence that I have, can I prove that the discharge was negligent? It depends on any witnesses, the defendant's statement, what forensic evidence is found at the scene, and can I piece together an argument beyond a reasonable doubt that that person was negligent in what they were doing? I'll point out with respect to willful, the definition of willful means, quote, intentionally, deliberately, as distinguished from an act done accidentally, inadvertently, or innocently. So I need to be able to prove that they intentionally discharged that firearm. Now, oftentimes, it's as easy as somebody saying they raised the firearm up and it went bang. That's a pretty great evidence of an intentional discharge. So those are the types of things that we're looking at, and so they're all very fact-specific.
Continue.
So, and this is where I'm going with this. So the theater question, you're carrying in a theater, you step up and with, the chairs, it happens to me constantly, it gets caught on my gun and it goes off. Is there a criminal offense there?
John Jones on behalf of the Nevada District Attorneys Association. I don't like playing the hypothetical game because I would have more evidence than just that, hopefully. Based on what you've told me, it's properly holstered. There's no other evidence. I would argue that's probably not a negligent discharge. But if it's just in your pocket and you sit down and it discharges, there might be a little bit more to the negligence theory there.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember LaRue Hatch.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for answering our questions. So I just want to get a little clarity because there was a lot in that presentation and there's multiple amendments that I have in front of me. And so I just wanted to clarify first. I have the one that is the joint proposed between DAs and public defenders, but then I have a separate one that is public defenders. Is this part of your presentation? Is this accepted?
John Jones on behalf of the Nevada District Attorneys Association. Thank you for that question, Assembly Member. No, that was the one point that we could not agree on in our negotiations. So we decided to do a bifurcated amendment, if that makes sense. Everything we agreed on is in the joint amendment, but the PD still wanted to propose that separate amendment that is something we did not agree to. Our proposal still leaves a willful discharge as a Category C felony, and that's what we're asking the committee to pass.
Thank you for that clarity. So then, can you just walk me through, let's say a student is on campus with a weapon, which as a teacher is a very high concern for me. What is the current process, and what is the changed process under this proposed amendment?
John Jones on behalf of the Nevada District Attorneys Association. So that right, the facts pattern that you just gave me is a possession of a firearm on a school campus. So nothing in this bill would change what happens in that case at all. Right now, under 62C060, because a firearm was possessed on school grounds, the risk assessment is already required. So what we're talking about is expanding it to firearms that are found off of school grounds, in the community, as part of a robbery or something along those lines. We would then expand the required evaluations into those scenarios.
Ruben De Silva for the record, and thank you for the question, Assemblymember LaRue Hatch. I think it's important because we see that oftentimes a lot of these are young people who are handling firearms. Yes, we have a very sort of careful ways of dealing with them when it happens on school grounds, but there's a lot of incidences that happen right outside of school. I mean, immediately outside of the campus. I mean, even at Rancho High School. I mean, we had one of our own students. Not in a firearms related issue, but murdered, killed, off right outside of the campus. So there's a lot of this taking place immediately within the vicinity during the early morning hours as students are coming to school, as you're leaving. And I think that more careful approach that we do have with our young people on campuses should be expanded out to the rest of the community. Have those risk assessments done, have this sort of a restorative and other rehabilitative sort of processes involved to those individuals, not just on the campus itself, but outside in the community, to those 16, 17-year-olds, which is what this bill is really focused on.
And Chair Miller, Bridget has been sitting down in Las Vegas. I don't know if she had anything she wanted to chime in with respect to that question, because it does deal specifically with juveniles.
Good morning, Chair Miller, members of the Assembly Judiciary. Bridget Duffy, Assistant District Attorney. It's BRIGID, DUFFY. And just to add in to the already made comments to Assemblyperson LaRue Hatch's question, it was very important to our division in the Clark DA's office to make sure that nothing changed with regard to guns on school campuses. So right now, a gun on a school campus, whether it's a real gun or a pneumatic gun that looks very real, that child would be brought into juvenile detention, detained, and assessed for risk to the school and the community, and then properly adjudicated and put on whatever level of sentencing, which we call disposition, was appropriate based upon that risk assessment.
Thank you for that. Our next question is from Assemblymember Hardy.
Thank you, Chair. And I appreciate this conversation about juveniles, because, I just think generally that if you're that young and you're turning to firearms or any kind of weapon, there's something else going on there. And so the need to look into that and address that is critical. So I appreciate that. I just wanted to touch on Section 1, just so I'm understanding this completely. So you're removing maliciously and wantonly because that's addressed in other statutes. And then in Section 2, that is addressing willfully in the situations described in Section 2. Do I understand that correctly?
John Jones on behalf of the Nevada District Attorneys Association. That is all correct.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Hanson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for being here and taking all our questions. So mine, and I'm sorry, Chair, I do have a couple of questions, but one's
Okay,
really...
so you can ask one and then ask for a follow-up.
Okay, thank you. When you listed the states, the neighboring states, I was curious why you didn't consider going the California route with either, that there was the option to go misdemeanor or felony rather than just directly at felony, seeming like there could maybe be instances where we might want that discretion.
John Jones on behalf of the Nevada District Attorneys Association. That's a great question. It would be a gross misdemeanor or felony in Nevada, and we do have wobbler crimes. I'm happy to, I think, and Detective Hunt and Metro would be happy to have that discussion with you if that's the route that the committee chooses to go. We decided to start as a felony because most of our neighboring jurisdictions had this as a felony. And if I could also just expand, Chair, just briefly, and if there are situations, we do regularly negotiate cases. There are exceptions to the rules all the time. And could there be a situation where it's appropriate to depart down in terms of negotiations? Yes, that happens. And the back and forth between the state and the public defender, those can be brought out, and maybe we can come to a resolution that's less than a felony.
Ruben De Silva for the record. Thank you again, Assemblymember Hanson, for the question. That was something that I asked, clearly before this bill was even drawn up. Will there be some latitude for judges, for folks who are negotiating these sort of consequences and the penalties associated with these incidents? So there will be latitude there. That's something that was clearly expressed to me by the DA, and by the LVMPD. Thank you.
And Chair, if I could with the second
follow-
question, if that's okay.
So it's not a follow-up, a second question.
Right.
Proceed.
Thank you. There's a lot here, and you did a great job trying to go through the amendment, so I appreciate that. As we're looking at Section 2, Sub 3, and we talk about discharge any firearm in a public place within an area designated by a city or county ordinance as a populated area, and then the rest of the language. So many areas, and of course in my district, and even where I live, in an urban area, but has a lot of open space that butts up. And those lines of knowing, I've looked at the map before and I'm gone, oops, there's no shooting allowed out. I didn't realize I thought it was still further out. So to me, this is a real kind of a gray area. I get a little nervous about, it just says, it's almost as if there's not a lot of leniency there. If somebody makes a mistake, if they, shoot, I guess I should clarify this. Sorry, it was a late night. This is not aiming a gun at somebody, but discharging a weapon in those areas. How are we dealing with those gray areas?
John Jones, on behalf of the Nevada District Attorneys Association, that is a great question, but I will honestly say I have 2 points. One, the maps are public and they are made by the county commission. So I would have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the willful discharge occurred within the boundary set by the commission designated as a populated area. If it's outside that area, my burden would be to prove that it endangered a person. So if it's in the middle of nowhere with nobody around, I'm not going to be able to make that argument. Now, with respect to the second point I think you made regarding people not knowing where those lines are, it's the old adage that ignorance of the law isn't necessarily a defense. And so it would be incumbent on us to put out those maps so people know exactly what areas are designated as populated areas. But I don't think that would be a lawful defense if somebody was in fact charged with discharging within that boundary.
I'll hold my question. Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Gonzalez.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you so much for the presentation. I just wanted clarification. So was there any data or research to back this?
Adrian Hunt for the record. Yes, we do have a handout as well that is over there on the table. We actually use our technology as well that's been very, very successful for us is the Shop Spotter technology. This has been around since November of 2019. So yes, the data and the stats are here, and if there's any other more stats that you would like, we definitely can contact us and we'll get that to you.
Follow-up, Chair, please. Thank you. Sorry, I guess my question was research data that supports that enacting this law would create less juvenile youth carrying weapons.
Yeah, that's a great question, Assemblymember Ruben De Silva for the record. There's a tremendous amount of data on both sides of this, to be honest with you. You look at the academic research, there's strong persuasive arguments being made on the side that says that increasing penalties does actually have some sort of actual action in inhibiting these sort of incidents. But there's also a lot of evidence on the other side. This is really coming down to a philosophical sort of debate, which we don't really have answers to in the end. There's good research on both sides. So we decided to really take this stance here to start the debate, to start the conversation. And when you look at the shot spotter data in and of itself, something that I'm personally invested in is the fact that, my part of the city, areas like where Assemblymember Moore is also in her district, you see a lot more of this happening. It is a tremendous problem for us, and we wanted to at least spark a conversation and propose a bit of legislation to deal with it. And of course, it's up to you all, our esteemed lawmakers, especially here in this committee, further this conversation and this legislation, if you so will to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chair.
I'd like to, if I may, I don't know how
Yes.
to raise my hand. It's
Yeah,
not like a
yes, please
screen. I can put
proceed. Yes.
my hand up. This is Bridget Duffy, for the record. Thank you, Chair Miller, and for allowing me to interject my thoughts on that very important question. Children with firearms in this community has been my burden for over a decade now. And if I had the answers to how to keep guns out of the hands of children, I would sleep better. And that's the problem with data. So what I can tell you is anybody who has been around children, whether they're your own or your nieces or nephews or in your classrooms, wherever it may be, one thing I think we can all say is that children respond to consequences. And consequences must meet the act, and they must be immediate. Meaning you can't tell a child in 6 months that they're being grounded for something they did 6 months ago, right? Children have very limited capacity. And I say that to mean with regard to risk reward, right? If I stayed out past curfew and all I got was, I had to clean my room, I still have my cell phone, I still have my car, I still have, like, big deal, mom, right? I'll do it again. So I think most of us in our state saw it play out on body cam video in a recent arrest of a juvenile for a very adult crime, where on the body cam video, the juvenile is saying, "I'm just a juvenile. What are you going to do to me?" And that's the reality of what we face every day. And I don't say that to mean that we have to throw the book at every kid. We have to be thoughtful. We have to treat the kid, not the crime. That is something I've been meditating on myself every day I do my job. A child may have a firearm, but that child may not be as big of a risk to the community because we can intervene quickly and get them the services that they need to another kid who has a firearm who is an extremely high risk to our community. So the sooner we intervene, the appropriate assessments that we get, the appropriate consequences for their actions, I believe we will see a difference in what happens. We don't have any data, unfortunately, because we haven't prioritized that in jurisdictions to collect much data except outside of telling you how many charges I file and how many kids we certify or how many kids get probation. But with passing this bill, it's something you could start, right? You could start it. You could say, let's see what happens after we pass this. Let's see if it makes a difference to our community, because we know it's common sense. The consequences must match the offense, and the consequences must match the child. A child that is a risk may need different consequences than in a child that is a low risk. I appreciate being able to kind of process that question with you. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for your response, Ms. Duffy. Before we continue, I would just, like Officer Hunt, would you please just explain what the shot spotter is in case there's anyone in the room who doesn't know what that technology is?
Adrian Hunt, for the record. So, shot spotter, gunshot detection technology, it's been, again, in our organization, we've been utilizing since November of 2019. It's been very helpful for our technical operations section and our fusion center. And again, shot spotter pretty much is a system that detects gunshots. And it's been very successful for our agency and as far as us getting to those gunshots. So again, as you can see in the handout, it helps us a lot of times, recover, cartridges, actually respond and actually catch offenders as well. It's helped in that aspect as well. So in layman's terms, again, I'm not the expert on this, but that's the broad of our technology that we're using.
Thank you so much. And I think I mentioned before that when I went on the recent ride along, the shot spotter actually went off, and so had an opportunity to see that technology firsthand, as well as the police response to it. So, but again, I just wanted to make sure everyone in the room understood what that technology is. Thank you. Our next question will be from Assemblywoman Moore.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. Yeah, as something member De Silva mentioned, our districts are very close to each other, and people shooting up in the air, that's a big issue. Happens in my neighborhood quite often, but I don't know which of my neighbors or who it is, right? And there's no shot spotter. So if I was to call in to Metro and there's no shot spotter, how would you all know who was the person that was shooting up in the air?
Thank you for the question, Assemblymember Moore. Again, shot spotter, and I believe you're in the Northeast Area Command. No?
I'm in the downtown area command.
Yes, so definitely. So again, this technology, we pretty much capture majority of the shootings. Some they do miss. Again, this is not a perfect technology, but we do, use it and have utilized it a lot. So a lot of times they probably have responded. I'm not sure if you would know, and unless you get an update on the crime and the stats in the area. But they do respond. Sometimes, we find cartridges. Sometimes we don't. You know what I mean? So, it's overall, 9 times out of 10, officers probably do respond, but I'm not sure on the way how they can pretty much relay that to you. Again, unless you're getting updates on what's going on in your area. Then I hope that answered the question.
When you get a notification from the shot spotter, what is the response time on average?
So here in the handout as well, that average time from the shot spotter technology alert is 52 seconds. So I remember clearly when I worked patrol, we would respond to shot spotter. So pretty much we would get the notification, and the closest unit would respond to that, and of course other units would come as well. And depending on how many shots that were fired, we all would sometimes respond to who was available. So again, it just it differs. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Chair Miller. I just want to expand a little bit. I've seen cases where Metro is actually responding to shot spotter before we even get a 911 call. It actually drastically increases the response time. And the faster that officers can get to the scene, the more likely it is that we find the perpetrator of the illegal discharge. And going back to your original question as well, in terms of the investigation, Metro, I think, does a very good job investigating these cases. So in terms of discharges, they're going to see surveillance video. Is there any surveillance video, doorbell cameras in the area that may capture a vehicle? Do we get a license plate that can lead us back to suspects? Witnesses are on the scene, those types of things. So every one of these cases is investigated to the full extent Metro can investigate them, and they really do take them seriously, and I think do a great job.
Thank you. Based on that, just a concern that my colleague has. Can you tell us which jurisdictions are or are not using this technology? Because I would imagine that when we say Metro, that would be all throughout, not just certain commands. But if you could just tell us, just clarify if every district under Metro's jurisdiction is using it, and then maybe what other police departments throughout the state are using it, if you know that information.
Thank you for the question, Chair. Adrian Hunt for the record. That I do not know overall, but I know for sure our agency, and that's all 10 area commands, we use this technology.
Thank you. Is there any, I know we have other law enforcement in the room. Would you like to come forward and tell us if you are or not? And any additional knowledge you may have about other jurisdictions using it?
Good morning, Chair Miller, members of the committee. Jason Walker, JASONWALKER, representing the Washoe County Sheriff's Office. As far as ShotSpotter goes, we are working on increasing the amount of ShotSpotters we have in the area. We currently have one set up in the city of Sparks, which reaches out a tremendous area. It's not just narrowed to a specific corner. It's, in my words, it's a large speaker, and it can listen along area. It can listen out a long ways. We are working at increasing that technology to get a better grasp of the Washoe County Valley.
Thank you. So Sparks is using it, but not necessarily Washoe, but except for where it kind of expands. It doesn't stop at geographical lines. I understand that.
Jason Walker, correct. And
Okay.
between Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County, we have a regional intelligence center very similar to the Southern Nevada Counterterrorism Center, where we share that technology to make sure that we get that information out to other responding agencies as fast as possible.
Okay, thank you so much. With that,
I'm sorry, Chair. I don't want to
Please.
misspeak. So to clear that up, I know for sure our most busiest, our most active area commands have ShotSpotter. I don't want to say all 10 area commands because I don't think like a Summer Area Command, Enterprise, I'm not certain if they do. But I know for sure our most busiest and active area commands, we do have ShotSpotter.
Okay, thank you. And with that, there may be some additional questions from members that will reach out to you directly. We all know you're all very accessible, so we appreciate that. With that, we will go ahead and move on to testimony. So anyone here in Carson City, we'll start here in Carson City first, that would like to come forward and testify in support of Assembly Bill 199, please come forward.
Good morning again, Chair Miller, Jason Walker, JASONWALKER, representing the Washoe County Sheriff's Office, as well as the Nevada Sheriffs and Chiefs Association, who can be here today. Thank you to the sponsors and presenters for bringing this bill forward. Supporting Assembly Bill 199 with the amendments, this bill addresses several issues. Removing maliciously wantonly, narrowing it to negligently. Additionally, addresses the discharging a firearm in a public place where a person might be endangered with the increased penalties, and the issue of juveniles with guns. It is never a good combination to have those. I reached out to the Washoe County Regional Gang Unit, whose clientele majority are juveniles. They offer their full support for this bill and also believe it will aid in their efforts to address these issues more effectively. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Miller, members of the committee. For the record, David Cherry, Government Affairs Manager for the City of Henderson. The city supports the bill, sponsors intent, and appreciates all of the work that has gone into meeting with the stakeholders to craft the amended bill before you today. The city believes it is important to send a message to our young people that there will be consequences if they legally possess and brandish and or discharge a firearm, but also give them the opportunity to learn from their mistake if they are found guilty and to make the punishment appropriate given the age of the individual. The bill also provides the courts with levels of discretion that can take into account the specific circumstances of each case they may adjudicate if this becomes law. The bill's evaluation components and updated community service framework are also valuable ways to hold juveniles accountable, while also seeking to place them on a more positive life path following the incident that led to their entry into the juvenile justice system. And we believe that this would have the ability to deter future unlawful behavior. And for these reasons, we urge your support for AB 199. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in Carson City wishing to testify? Not seeing any. Is there anyone there in Las Vegas? Please come forward and proceed.
Yes.
You may be.
Pastor Troy Martinez. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes. Please
All right,
proceed
thank
and
you.
spell your name, please.
TroyMartinez. Again, Pastor Troy Martinez, and today I'm representing the Rebuilding Every City Around Peace program. I would like to mention that from approximately 2005 to current, so about 20 years, I have worked with both the governmental and community agencies to prevent violence amongst youth. I'm here today in support of Bill 199. My direct experience, sadly to say, one of the common denominators has always been the fact that a gun was used. conducted more funerals than I can count of very young children, been to court with juveniles that were sentenced to 25 to life or longer, and the ability to change the outcome of slowing down the escalation of violence, specifically by removing firearms, to remove those from the equation, which I believe AB 199 allows through their tools, would literally be saving the lives of these children from being murdered or committing murder. The worst sound you can imagine is that of a cry of a mother who is bearing that child. The mother who will never get that child back and will receive a lifetime of pain. It's more than a bill or a charge. It's a real person. It's a child. It's a juvenile. And I don't think the children or the juveniles really understand the finality of death for those that pass or those that get a long time in prison because they're being tried as adults. Most juveniles do not carry a gun. Most students don't take a gun to school or ever even fire a gun.
Pastor,
So it is a, yes.
could you please wrap up your comment? Your 2 minutes are up.
Okay, yes, I will. So I can tell you that combating the gun culture that has been romanticized to remove the fact that many times just off campus, guns will be placed in the recent past,
Okay,
140 rounds.
Thank you, Pastor.
Were
You're over time.
expended. Okay, I apologize, but I will conclude and again in support of AB 199.
Thank you. And if you have written comments that you would like to submit to the committee, please feel free to do so that we can read your full testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing anyone else there in Las Vegas. Broadcasting, will you open the lines?
If you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 199, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 199, please press star 9 now. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify in support at this time.
Okay, thank you. Then I will open it up for our testimony in opposition, beginning here in Carson City.
Good morning, Chair Miller, members of the Assembly Judiciary, Paloma Guerrero.
Please proceed.
Paloma Guerrero, P-A-L-O-M-A-G-U-E-R-E-R-O, on behalf of the Clark County Public Defender's Office. We're really proud of the work that we did for the joint proposed amendment, but we're here in opposition of Section 2 of AB 199. We have a gun problem in our communities, and it's a very, very scary thing, but increasing the penalty up to a felony is a time and tried failed solution. This bill is not a bill about proven solutions to end gun violence like community violence and intervention programs, like gun buyback programs, like focused deterrence, like investing in job training and youth employment. No, the bill is the same answer they've always given us, the same answer that has led us to mass incarceration, the same answer that harms Black and brown communities and again does not stop gun violence. We cannot keep trying to incarcerate our way out of our problems. The U.S. Department of Justice, National Institute of Justice writes that the certainty of being caught is a vastly more powerful deterrent than punishment. And increasing the severity of punishment, like what's being done here, does little to deter crime, because people who commit crimes know little about the sanctions for any specific crime. And we've heard already about how congested our prisons are, the horrible conditions, the 3 deaths that have happened in the last few weeks. Black and brown communities have decades of over-policing and disproportionately bearing the brunt of mass incarceration and over-criminalization in the United States because of the exact same thought process that's going on here. This bill, or this section, is not data-driven, it's not smart on crime, it's regressive. And we cannot do this when crime is already on a downward trend. And we know this will be enforced unequally because the bill on its face outlines a disproportionate impact it will have. It makes it a felony if you're discharging a firearm in a populated area. And we submitted a map of the area in Clark County that's designated a populated area, and that's, y'all should have that as an exhibit, hopefully. And these are areas where if you're doing the exact same conduct in Summerlin, you won't be a felon. But if you do it in most of the
Thank you. Your 2 minutes are up.
Thank you.
Good morning, Angela Knott on behalf of the Washoe County Public Defender's Office and the Washoe County Alternate Public Defender's Office, ANGELA-KNOTT. Our opposition today is regarding Section 2. Ultimately, we are talking about conduct that where the punishment already fits the crime. Shooting a gun into the air without anything more is worth a gross misdemeanor. A gross misdemeanor carries a penalty of up to 1 year in jail. Your liberty is taken for 1 year. You miss all of the holidays, all of the birthdays, you lose your job, and you're away from your family and your loved ones. That is a severe penalty. We did submit a chart outlining other crimes involving guns that are already felonies. When you shoot a gun in the air with the intent to intimidate someone, that is a felony. When you shooting into a home, that is a felony. When you shoot into any sort of a structure, that is a felony. When you're shooting from a home, that is a felony. Shooting while inside a car, a felony. But just shooting a gun into the air without anything more is not worth a felony. People fire guns into the air for many reasons. Some do so at a celebration. They could do it recklessly, but not because they're carefully weighing what possible punishments they can get. This bill targets young adults and juveniles. By increasing this to a felony, this will allow a prosecutor to certify a juvenile who is at least 14 years of age to be certified as an adult. The prosecutors talk a lot about discretion, but in Washoe County, discretion is not an easy thing to define. Felonies are a big deal, and they impact all aspects of your life. When we're dealing with children and young adults, we want their lives to start strong, not in prison. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Miller, Vice Chair Marzola. My name is Kayla Maese, spelled Kaylah. Last name is Maese. I'm a civil rights analyst at the ACLU of Nevada. The ACLU does oppose AB 199 as presented today. However, we are happy to work with Assemblyman De Silva, the DA's office, and Metro on some mitigating strategies that we have in our heads, so we're ready to have that discussion. So thank you very much.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Aisha Goins, Aesha Goins. I'm here as the first Vice President of the NAACP, and we, not wanting to buy into a trope, but aggressively oppose this bill, specifically for Section 2. It is a concern based on what the public defenders have already said, but I also just want to say that I also have family members who have suffered from gun violence. I have lost family members from gun violence. But just as Bridget Duffy pointed out, the crime should fit the time, right? That doesn't mean that every specific situation should be dealt and handled in the exact same way. I agree with Assemblymember Hansen. Why are we taking out gross misdemeanor? It just seems like we're moving forward in a way that goes forward in incarceration. That also puts lives and families at risk. And unintended consequences is my primary concern, especially with the climate that we're in. Thank you very much. I urge you to not move forward as this has been presented. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Janine Hansen. I'm the state president of Nevada Families for Freedom. We understand and appreciate what this bill is trying to do. However, it does not just apply to juveniles, it applies to everyone. There is a significant difference in the law when you take out maliciously and wantonly. Maliciously means implies an evil intent to injure another person. Wantonly refers to a state of mind where a person acts with willful, reckless disregard for the safety of others or their property. This bill only leaves negligently, which essentially could be a mistake, means a lack of attention to the nature or probable consequences of an act or omission. Although we heard in testimony that it may not apply to a mistake, but on page 3, section 2, subsection 3, concerns me when it says on line 8 and 9, discharge of weapons or in any place where any person might be endangered thereby. What does that mean? That's very broad, very open, and very undefined. And also we're concerned about the penalty. I live in rural Elko County. I have a lot of ugly squirrels, ground squirrels on my property, and they attract badgers, which are dangerous, and they like my yard because I feed the chickens there. If I'm out in my property shooting those squirrels with a shotgun, is that going to endanger someone? Well, maybe my neighbor doesn't like me, or someone's driving by on the road. This is undefined, and that concerns me specifically, especially when they take out willful and maliciously. So although we appreciate the intent, we continue to be concerned with the possible ultimate consequences for people who have no bad intent to harm other people. And so we ask that you would reconsider what is in this bill. We are concerned about our young people, and we understand the problem. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Bob Russo for the record. I'll keep this simple. Ditto what's been said. I oppose this bill, and I just want to reiterate what Janine just said regarding intentional section 2, item 3, regarding intentional discharges. Part of this extends on public place to include any place where any person might be endangered. Again, I think that's too broad a definition. I think the crime's too much. We're all human beings. Things happen. So we make mistakes behind the wheel. We may have an unintentional discharge on a gun. I don't think we should be overly, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm kind of losing it here. Forgive me. The crime shouldn't be stiff for something like that because we are human. Things happen. And then regarding kids, I think putting them in a juvenile retention center for a second offense is too harsh. I would like to see programs available for kids. I mean, when we were kids, we were responsible with firearms, and we were able to go out and shoot on our own. I would like to see some programs available for young kids where they can prove that they are responsible so they don't have to be under supervision every time they go out and shoot. There's a lot of kids, 16, 17, 15, that are, I'm sure, very responsible, understand firearm safety, and they should be able to go out and shoot. That's my opinion. Anyway, I oppose this bill. I think there's too much unclarity in it, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Anyone else here in Carson wishing to oppose? Is there anyone there in Las Vegas? Okay, broadcasting, will you open the lines?
If you would like to oppose Assembly Bill 199, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 199, please press star 9 now.
Barry Johnston, Las Vegas, BERRYJOHNSTON. I ditto everything the pretty young lady in the teal from the Liberty Group said, but I'd also like to point out and say loud and clear that the shot spotter has no place in a free society. We are told it only detects gunfire, but that's a lie by omission. Shot spotter microphones are always on, always listening, and they don't just record gunshots. They record everything, a conversation on your porch, arguments in your backyard, laughter in your neighborhood. This is mass surveillance without a warrant. It violates our Fourth Amendment, the rights to be secure in our persons, houses, papers, and effect. This is a gun control issue. This is a freedom control issue. In Nevada, where we value independence, self-defense, and limited government, the idea that we are installing government microphones on our streets should make every red-blooded citizen furious. And let me be blunt, these systems are targeted at low-income, working-class neighborhoods. They are not into gated communities. They're being dropped into places where people don't have lawyers or the influence to fight back. Shot Spotter does not stop crime. It creates false alerts, wastes resources. It gives law enforcement a blank check to show up anywhere at any time without probable cause, and just because a robot microphone claimed to hear a pop. We fought a revolution to stop this kind of surveillance tyranny. Our founders would have smashed the system with a hammer, and we should too. Reject Shot Spotter, defend our rights, and don't trade liberty for the illusion of safety. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next caller.
Good morning, Chair Miller and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Quentin Savoy. That's Quentin, S like Sam, A like Apple, V like Victor, WOIR. I'm the president of the Las Vegas branch of the NAACP, and I first want to start with thanking all parties involved for such a robust conversation. I really enjoyed the public discourse about matters that are so important to our community. But I want to sympathize with everyone that has named how gun violence has impacted their life. Indeed, we have all lost someone. I've lost a countless number of cousins, and I have a nephew who's impacted by the justice system currently. So I hate that this is becoming a more prevailing commonality that we have with each other in this country, that we've all lost someone to gun violence. It makes me think we're not having the right discussion today. Currently, and I want to just specifically shout out Detective Hunt. We got to speak yesterday, and I value his role in the community as a leader and as a mentor, and I understand the intention of what we're trying to get at. But as Paloma stated with the Clark County PD's office, I think we're looking to a solution that we know has consistently failed us. And the idea that we would not even pursue data that would prove that this is going to be the solution that we're intending, I think is really, really misguided. And it contributes to this national climate of just rejecting data. I understand that our young people aren't angels, but we have to figure out ways, new innovative ways to reach them, to get them on the right track. I'm of the generation where Secretary Clinton called us super predators. And if we take this same approach with this next generation of young people, we're missing out on the opportunity to invest in next generation's leaders. So I really want us to implore solutions that we know are fact-based and data-driven. We know that focused deterrence works. We know that workforce development programs work. Over-policing does not work. Please reject this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
My name is Katrin Ivanov, KatrinIvano, Frank, and I'm in opposition of this bill. This bill doesn't solve the problems it's trying to solve. If our youth is so unhinged and so misbehaving, whose fault is it? It's our fault. We didn't teach them appropriate values. We didn't teach them appropriate ways to behave. Everybody gets a trophy mentality, hasn't teach them that they have to work for what they want. We need to change what we teach in our kids and go back to what our founding fathers were teaching their kids, because our founding fathers were in their 20s when they were saving and fighting for our country. So the youth is behaving the way it is behaving because we have allowed them to get away with everything when they were kids. If we put mandatory gun education or firearms education and culture in the school, things are going to change. Kids are going to learn about guns. Kids are going to learn how dangerous guns are if used inappropriately. They would learn appropriate time to use or not use a gun. The way we teach them to use 911, and you have 3-4-year-old kids dialing 911 and saving their grandma, their father from a heart attack, getting a heart attack, or things like that. We also have kids that know how to use guns, that save their families from an intruder. So if we educate our kids properly, we're going to have different results. The results we're getting right now is only because the adults haven't done the job of teaching their kids properly. Bills are not going to fix the situation. This has to start in the home.
Thank you, ma'am. Your 2 minutes are up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.
Thanks. Next caller.
Hello, good morning. My name is Yesenia Moya, Yesenia Moya. I strongly oppose AB 199. I do not take this position lightly. I am a survivor of gun violence. My car was shot at. I've seen gunfire into the air. Members of my own family have been maimed by guns. I know firsthand the fear and that this causes, but I also know that increasing criminal penalties and pushing for young people into the adult system will not make our community safer. The National Institute of Justice found that increasing the severity of punishment does little to prevent crime. And turning more cases into felonies does not address the root causes of violence, poverty, lack of mental health resources, or the need for community-based interventions. Studies from the CDC have shown that youth prosecuted as adults are 34% more likely to reoffend than those kept in the juvenile system. When we send young people into the adult system, we don't rehabilitate them, we set them up for failure. This disproportionately impacts our Black youth. In Nevada, Black youth make up 13% of the population, while making up 42% of those referred for detention. I want real solutions to gun violence. I want investments in violence intervention programs, community-led safety initiatives, mental health services, economic stability for our people. I want policies that prevent gun violence before it happens, not ones that react after the fact with harsher punishment. As someone who has personally experienced the impact of gun violence, I refuse to believe that criminalization is the answer, and I urge you to oppose AB 199. Instead, focus on real, evidence-based solutions that make our community safer. Don't expand a broken system that punishes. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask now that I believe there's a few more people on the phone for opposition testimony, and I'm going to ask that you just stay on the phone. We are going to get to you in a few moments. It's just that our bill sponsor was bouncing between two committees with two bill presentations. That's why he had left, and that's why he's back. And they're waiting on him back upstairs. So I wanted to give him the opportunity. He also wanted to hear some of the opposition. So I want to give him the opportunity now to make his personal final statements, and then we can return back to the co-presenters. But first, we'll go to the bill sponsor, we'll go back to opposition, and we'll continue there so you can get back upstairs. So, Assembly Member.
Thank you, Chair. Ruben De Silva, for the record. Thank you, Chair, for being so gracious and working this busy time of the year for all of us legislators. Again, just to make some closing remarks before we get back to some of the testimony here, and I'm glad that I was able to hear some of the opposition on this issue. First, I do want to thank the chair. Again, I want to clarify that the chair did help with negotiating. She wasn't hands-on in dealing with this issue, but did help in bringing together this very...
Assembly Member, actually, I did not help with the bill.
Yes.
The only, Metro came to me with a question about an amendment for the bill, and I told them my position on that amendment, but I would not consider that helping. I had not met with anyone else about this bill.
Oh, yeah, just wanted to clarify.
Yeah,
that,
so
yes, thank
Metro
you.
asked me a question about the amendment, and I told Metro where I was at on that amendment.
Yes,
That's not the same as working or helping on the bill, but continue.
Just wanted to clarify that, Chair. I know I mentioned that in the beginning. So, so this is, again, an issue that was presented to me by the community members, by the sheriff, by many individuals involved with education, sort of advocacy, that we got to do something about the amount of gun violence that's taking place, specifically with our young people. And also the fact that there's so much of it happening in the areas that I represent. I think that when we look at the ShotSpotter data, it is a tremendous sort of spike. So this is a bill that was brought to me as a community bill. Those of you who know me understand that I don't just think of bills usually. I'm not that type of a lawmaker. I have the conversations with the community, and they bring these issues to me. I know that it's a tremendously a volatile issue. How we go about enhancing penalties, consequences, and also creating restorative programs for people who offend in this particular arena and this particular aspect of the law. So we proposed a bill now that does take a stance in this matter, that that we want to now enhance consequences because we want that sort of immediacy that's going to be available to our law enforcement officials, to our district attorneys, and to those who are also working with the PD's office. So you have some tools now when it comes to adjudicating this matter. So again, I know this is going to be a work in progress. It is a monumental issue. It's one that is pressing. It's one that has affected so many of us personally. And I'm hoping that we can work with all parties. And I want to thank everybody who's been involved in this ongoing negotiation. I know it's a matter that's near and dear to the hearts of many of you who sit on this committee. So we're going to work on this bill. We're going to focus on the solution that's going to be of consequence and of consensus in the end. But again, I'm very happy to know that we are dealing with this issue and that this legislative session we're taking the issue of gun violence as one of our top priorities. So thank you, Chair, for the graciousness. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and now I'm sure they'll be happy to see you return back upstairs. Thank you. So with that, broadcasting, can we return back to opposition testimony?
Good morning, Carl Segerblom, CarlSegerblom, on behalf of Nevada Attorneys for Criminal Justice. So, look, it's already a felony to threaten someone with a gun, already a felony to shoot a gun at an occupied structure or a car. These are situations where someone's life is potentially at risk. But now we want to make it a felony for someone to shoot a gun into the air. I mean, I've had clients charged with this crime. Invariably, it's some young dummy who thought it'd be funny or cool or something stupid. Not something we should be condoning, certainly, but also not a situation where they're trying to hurt someone, trying to threaten someone, just doing something stupid because they're young and their brains aren't yet fully formed. And we want to make these people lifetime felons. Make it impossible for them to get a job, hard to find a place to live, face possible prison time. People doing something stupid, but with no intention to hurt or threaten anyone. This is not philosophical. This is what actually happens when you become a felon. Now, we know making the punishments greater does not deter crime. The dummies that are shooting guns in the air aren't thinking at all, much less about whether or not it's a felony. So what purpose does this bill serve? Metro has not given us any data about why this should be a felony. All they can say is trust us. This will help. I think that before this legislature makes more people lifetime felons, it needs to be more than trust us. This will help. NAPJ opposes this bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next caller.
Caller with the last three digits, 130. You are unmuted and may begin.
Good morning. My name is Denise Bolaños Heredia, COLANOSHEREDIA, and I'm the Associate Director of Return Strong, and we strongly oppose Section 2 of AB 199. This bill would disproportionately impact communities of color by making the discharge of a firearm a felony, but only in populated areas. This selective criminalization fuels mass incarceration and deepens racial disparities in our legal system, just as we saw with the crack versus powder cocaine sentencing disparities that devastated Black and Brown communities while allowing others to face lesser consequences for the same actions. While the DA's office has stated they would use discretion to charge people with a lesser crime when appropriate, history has shown that this discretion is rarely applied equitably, often resulting in the disproportionate criminalization of our communities while others receive leniency. If public safety is the goal, we should invest in community-based violence prevention, not harsher penalties that perpetuate cycles of incarceration. We urge you to reject AB 199 as written. Thank you.
Next caller.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Madam Chair and committee, my name is Lynn Chapman, LYNNCHAPMAN, and I'm the state treasurer of the Independent American Party. So many of the problems with juveniles having guns and using them in the wrong way is mainly because of drugs and gangs. And for the other kids, perhaps gun education would help them to understand the seriousness of owning guns and shooting, etc. We are very worried about the wording in Section 1, taking out certain wording. Also, Section 2, Sub 3, lines 8 and 9 worry us as well. And all I really need to say is ditto for everybody else has touched on what we're concerned with. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next caller.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Miller, members of the committee. My name is Jim DeGraffenreid, JIMDEGRAFFENREID. I'm Nevada's Republican National Committee man, here today in opposition to AB 199 for the Nevada Republican Party. We support the amendments that added the provisions of SB 359 to the bill. Worth noting that passed the Senate unanimously in 2023. We would prefer to see it in a separate bill rather than included in a gun discharge bill, but we do appreciate those amendments. I'd like to ditto the comments of Janine Hansen regarding the removal of the words malicious and wanton. She covered that very well. We appreciate the amendment that eliminates the Category B felony for second offense, but we do prefer the existing law as gross misdemeanor. Seems inappropriate for us to lower the standards for the crime and at the same time increase its penalty. For these reasons, we oppose AB 199. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Follow with the last three digits, 943. Please press star 6 to unmute your phone. Caller 943, please press star 6 to unmute your phone. You may begin.
Good morning, members of the Assembly. My name is Shaylin Dieter, and I am an attorney here in Las Vegas, Nevada, representing the National Lawyers Guild in opposition of subsection 2 of this bill, particularly making an increase in penalty from a gross misdemeanor to a Category C felony for the offense alleged here. Simply put, this is an unreasonable increase considering the nature of the offense. Increasing the amount of individuals who have to live with felony status in our community does not improve outcomes for anyone. It does not improve job outlook or community safety or financial stability within our community. And most importantly, it impacts disproportionately our brown and black constituents and would only further to increase disparities and outcomes for them. Increasing penalties such as this goes from the gross misdemeanor offense, which can be punishable by up to some jail time, to up to 2 to 5 years in the Nevada Department of Correction. Not only that, but individuals who are charged with felonies are forever felons in as far as they're no longer permitted to carry firearms. The amount of offenses that we see where we are defending individuals who are charged with B felonies for prohibited person and possession, especially when they were charged with felonies at such a young age or perhaps certified at such a young age for having felony-based offenses, is tenfold. And it's just that the language of the bill in which there is individuals who might be harmed by these gunshots, the discretion in that as far as prosecutors, might is incredibly vague, doesn't allow any specificity, and could reasonably be considered to anywhere, even rural areas, as one of my fellow oppositions pointed out earlier. So we oppose the increase in penalty from gross misdemeanor as the National Lawyers Guild to a felony.
Okay,
and on that we'll submit our opposition.
Thank you. First, if you wouldn't mind, could you still submit your testimony in writing? I absolutely love the ability for the public to call in on the telephone, but also recognize that you're also juggling other things while doing so sometimes, and it was kind of a little difficult to hear at times. So would you please, if you are able, email your testimony to us so that we have it very specific for the record?
Chair, that caller has dropped from the line.
Okay. Thank you so much. Next caller.
Caller with the last three digits, 280. You are unmuted and may begin.
Good morning. My name is Lorena Biasotti, LORENA BIASSOTTI, speaking for myself today. Nevada has managed to preserve its constitutional Second Amendment rights. Nevadans don't appreciate living under an ever-expanding cloud of threat hanging over their right to bear arms. This last-minute move is unclear and can lead to many unintended consequences. I'd like to ditto the previous caller when she said education is key to solving gun violence in our youth. I believe Assemblyman De Silva means well, but this bill is clearly missing the mark. Please reject this bill. Thank you.
Next caller.
Good morning, everyone. CYRUSHOJJATY. I just wanted to ditto the previous callers. Thank you so much for everybody, all the efforts that's done. I appreciate the work of the bill sponsor. I do believe that family structure is very important for children. And other than that, oh yes, and thank you for taking this many calls. I appreciate it, not limiting the number of callers. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
If you have recently joined and would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 199, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Greetings, Chair. My name is Jagada Chambers, JAGADACHAMBERS. I want to just preface with a quote. I was blessed to be under the tutelage of former Attorney General Holder years back in a community trust and law enforcement program. And he taught me, and I always remember, that we will never prosecute or incarcerate our way to becoming a safer nation. I'm in opposition of the bill. I think it'll only result in a thrust of youth being put into the adult court system or more time inside of the cage. I would love for us, I do acknowledge that we had 400 weapons confiscated by juveniles, which is alarming and very problematic, and it does need to be addressed. But I really believe that literacy could play a big investment in that versus over-criminalizing and getting more time out of our communities. I'll end with that in respect for you all's Friday. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Next caller.
This is Tanya Freeman, and I object to this bill.
Sir, continue.
Hello?
Yes, you may continue. Please spell your name, though.
Tanya Freeman. Tanyafreeman, and I oppose this bill, and I ditto those that oppose it before me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next
Chair,
caller.
there are no other callers choosing to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you so much. And I would just like to say that our, I don't want to say interruption, but our change of flow actually allowed more people to call in for opposition, because while the sponsor was speaking, more people were dialing in. So I don't want anyone to think that it cut off. It actually increased by possibly a dozen people. So just so you know that the public had more opportunity to chime in. With that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for neutral testimony. Is there anyone here in Carson City in neutral? Is there, I don't see anyone in Las Vegas. Broadcasting, will you open the lines for neutral testimony?
If you would like to testify in neutral for Assembly Bill 199, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in neutral for Assembly Bill 199, please press star 9 now. Chair, there are no callers wishing to testify in neutral at this time.
Thank you so much. Well, with that, I will go ahead and close testimony on Assembly Bill 199. And no final statements? Okay, thank you. Then we will, here comes Adrian Hunt. Come on. Okay, thank you, because it's just the speaker waiting on you, that's all.
My apologies.
Okay.
Adrian Hunt for the record. I will say this, in my years of law enforcement experience, I know guns in the wrong hands are dangerous. Guns in the hands of youth are extremely dangerous. We also would like to point out the probational offense. We got to realize it's the probational offense side of it, and again, it's mainly a discretion to the judge on what they decide. It's not mandatory. We kind of figured that we would have some opposition, of course, and we understand that. We welcome all organizations and community members to partner with us, and I'm speaking from our agency in particular, to make sure our youth are productive in our community. I know our sheriff has done a bang-up job, has done an amazing job on community engagement, and he pushes and thrives for our agency to do that. And we have a section called OCE, which stands for Office of Community Engagement, and they've been amazing in doing a lot of things around our community. And I'll end with this. One of my favorite quotes is, "What they see is what they'll be." So again, I encourage all to come out. We got a lot of rhetoric going on, but I don't really see action. I'm speaking personally from being a member of the community that comes out and really try to put their hands on the kids as far as helping and assisting them. We talked a lot, but what are we doing personally to try to change a lot of these lives? And I'll leave with that. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Officer. And with that, I will go ahead and close the hearing on Assembly Bill 199. Next up, we have Assembly Bill 480. So I will open the hearing on Assembly Bill 480. And Speaker, do you have any co-presenters or anyone? Okay, well, whenever you are ready and settled, please proceed.
Good morning, Chair Miller, members of the Assembly Committee on Judiciary. I'm Steve Yeager. I represent Assembly District 9, and it is a pleasure to be here with you today. As many of you know, this is a committee that is near and dear to my heart, and I think it's the first time I'm appearing in here this session. Before I move on to the presentation, I did just want to say thank you to this committee. I know how hard you work, and obviously you were here a very long time yesterday, hearing 3 bills, and so let me say thank you to you as members and to your staff as well for doing all of that work. I wish I could tell you the workload would lessen, but it'll probably increase as we go forward, but I'm very appreciative of your efforts. I am also very pleased to be here this morning to present Assembly Bill 480, which aims to adopt the disparate impact standard for purposes of the Nevada Fair Housing Law. Just to give you some background, and I don't think this will take anyone by surprise, but unfortunately, housing discrimination remains a persistent issue in our state and indeed across the nation. Assembly Bill 480 seeks to strengthen our existing fair housing laws by adopting what is known as the disparate impact standard, thus aligning Nevada's protections more closely with current federal regulations. Under the Federal Fair Housing Act, the disparate impact standard is a critical tool in combating housing discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, or national origin. It allows us to address policies that may seem neutral on their face, but in practice result in discriminatory outcomes. For example, a landlord policy of evicting tenants who call emergency services more than twice in 6 months may disproportionately impact women who are victims of domestic violence. While not explicitly discriminatory, such a policy creates barriers for women seeking housing. The disparate impact standard recognizes that discrimination often occurs not through overt statements, but through policies that drive unequal outcomes. It enables us to hold accountable those whose practices perpetuate housing segregation or disproportionately harm protected groups, even without proof of discriminatory intent. I know some of you in other committees have heard me say as we approach our 250th anniversary as a country, it has been our mission to continually try to create a more perfect union. We certainly have strides to make there, but I think we have to recognize the history in this country, and that history has not always been friendly to folks, particularly when it comes to housing and housing discrimination. And I do fear, as I'll note in a moment, Chair, that we're perhaps going in the wrong direction, or we're at a crossroads, at least in this moment of time, where we have to continue to try to make progress, in my opinion, rather than regress to policies of the past that were discriminatory. In addition, as you all know, because you talk to your constituents, housing is a major issue right now. Eviction is a major issue right now. And this policy, I believe, will help make housing more available and will help people from unfairly being evicted. So let me just give you a sense of where this idea came from. I get a lot of emails that tell me about legislation that's happening across the country, and it's a very interesting email because it tells you about legislation that's happening in all the states around the country. And so those emails are interesting to read because states seem to be going in very different directions at this point in time. But New York, as a state, has proactively introduced legislation to codify this idea, state-level disparate impact standards in housing law, mirroring the federal Fair Housing Act protections. They have a proposed bill much like this one, and the idea there was just to make sure if the federal protections go away, that we still have protection in our state law. So I'd love to tell you that I came up with this idea on my own, but I didn't. I got it in a 6 a.m. email and saw that New York was doing this, and my first question was, do we have this in our state law or not? And it turns out we did not. So I think a bill like Assembly Bill 48 and those in New York are important because the current administration federally has launched efforts to dismantle the federal disparate impact enforcement, including a United States Department of Justice memo that came out recently explicitly narrowing the disparate impact claims. So I believe it's a matter of time until this standard goes away federally. I hope I'm wrong about that, and if I am, it's nice to have this in our state law anyway, but it does protect us. In addition, something you've heard, everyone in this room has heard a lot of, Project 2025, a policy blueprint that was talked about during the campaign, explicitly urges ending the disparate impact statement's use and challenges its constitutionality. So those actions, I believe, if that were enacted or taken away federally, risk gutting critical civil rights tools that address systematic discrimination in housing, lending, and employment. This bill only applies to housing, but I think it's time for us to look in the mirror and recognize what is happening federally and how it might impact Nevada. Again, I hope I'm wrong about all of this, but I fear that I'm not. So I'm asking this committee to adopt Assembly Bill 480 to serve as a backstop against a federal rollback, to preserve accountability for policies that disproportionately harm marginalized communities. And I believe this bill aligns our state with long-standing federal interpretation of the Fair Housing Act and provides a vital mechanism for combating subtle forms of housing discrimination. And Chair, if I could very briefly, I'll just take you through the sections of the bill. It's not too long. So Assembly Bill 480 makes several changes. Section 1 introduces new provisions into Nevada law that establish that liability or a discriminatory practice can be based on either explicit discriminatory intent, that's the easy way to prove it, or disparate impact on a protected group even without discriminatory intent. But it also provides that there is no liability if the practice is necessary to achieve substantial, legitimate, and non-discriminatory interests that couldn't be served by a less discriminatory practice. That is known as the strict scrutiny standard, which I'm sure you've heard of in this committee on occasion, or if you haven't, I'm sure you will. In addition, the bill outlines the burden of proof that both complainants and respondents must meet in disparate impact cases. Section 2 of the bill incorporates this new section into the Nevada Fair Housing Law. Section 3 applies the definitions in existing law relating to discrimination. in housing to the provisions in Section 1. And just to note, because I was looking at this bill this morning, I always make it a point to read the bill one last time before I come in, because invariably I find something that maybe I wasn't sure what it meant either, and maybe the committee would ask. So I did want to just point the committee to the final page of the bill, page 3, line 9. There's some definitions there. I guess actually line 12. So when we're talking about complaints here, line 12 says a complaint is filed with the commission. That is the Nevada Equal Rights Commission. So a complaint, if you believe you were subject to this kind of discrimination, you would have the ability to file a complaint with the Nevada Equal Rights Commission. And then in line 14, it talks about an action being commenced pursuant to 118, NRS 118-120. That would be a district court action, typically for injunctive relief or for damages. So if someone felt like they were subject to this kind of discrimination, they essentially have two different options. You can go to the Equal Rights Commission or you can file suit. So that really is the entirety of the bill. I believe this bill is relatively simple. It's maybe not as exciting as the one you just heard, which went a very long time, but I think the importance really cannot be overstated. We need to make sure we are strengthening our state's ability to ensure fair housing for all, addressing both intentional discrimination and those sometimes insidious policies that can result in discriminatory effects. So I urge your support for Assembly Bill 480. I think it's an important step. And Chair, with that, I thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Speaker, for that. And before we get to questions, the last bill reminded me of a bill we passed our freshman year back in 2017, which was 118 by Assembly Member Skip Daly. I can say it. He's not on the dais right now. But you also mentioned in some of your opening remarks about the adverse effects against maybe a woman who may have to call the police a few times. And it reminded me of the bill, and I looked it up, AB 133 from Assemblymember Anderson that we passed our freshman session that literally did that one component already, which was to protect people, and it is generally more women, that their landlords couldn't have adverse actions on them if they called the police multiple times, that wasn't a reflection of anything other than people need assistance. So just wanted to put that out if anyone wants a little historical, now that we've become historians in our fifth term. But with that, I will open it up for questions, and the first question will come from Assemblymember Gonzalez.
Good morning, Speaker. Thank you so much. I beg to differ. I think that this is very exciting, so I appreciate the intent here and the call to answering our constituents' need for fair and affordable housing. Although it's not about affordable, but fair, right? So I just had a question. In Section 1, A, when it says the practice was motivated by discriminatory intent, and you listed the protected classes, gender, race, things like that, would source of income discrimination be part of this if a tenant was able to prove that they were denied due to a source of income?
Steve Yeager for the record. Chair, can I go direct, or would you like me to go through? Thank you. I don't believe so because, Section B lists out the explicit categories that we're protecting in here. So I don't believe source of income would be subject, at least not to subsection B, although, subsection A is a standalone section, right? The practice was motivated by discriminatory intent. So I'm very free to be corrected by your very able legal counsel if subsection A should be interpreted in a different way, but the way I read it, I think it's just the explicitly listed categories of folks who would be protected.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I agree with that.
Thank you, Chair. May I have a follow-up?
Proceed.
May I be added to the bill as a co-sponsor, please?
Steve Yeager for the record. Yes, thank you, of course. And sometimes, as you guys note, I don't often have time to go around and get lots of sponsors. So if anybody does want to be added on, I'm happy to do that as well. Thank you for the request.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Cole.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Speaker, for bringing this bill. So my question is really in regards to the defining term, right, in Section 1, Sub 2. No, sorry, Sub 1B. So we talked about disparate impact, and it seems as though this section really defines what disparate impact means by talking about the group of persons. But then in section 3, at the end of that section, we talk about discriminatory effect. So I'm first wondering if that should be disparate impact rather than discriminatory effect. And you can look at that later and just see if that needs to be clarified. But I think my question is the intent of this is to align this with federal rule, correct? That's my understanding is right.
Steve Yeager, for the record, thank you for the first question. I'll look into that and make sure we have the language right. Yes, to your question, right now it is through federal regulation, essentially, that the disparate impact standard has been enacted, and that has been interpreted by courts as well. But I'm trying to align it with the federal regulation because I believe it's likely the federal regulation could go away, and if that goes away, then we're left with nothing either in federal law or state law. So it is one of these instances where I like what the federal government is doing right now and the way they're interpreting this, and I want to make sure our state continues to do it that way, even if the federal government goes in a different direction.
Can I just have a quick follow-up? Perfect. Thank you very much for that answer. I'm just curious then, looks like there's a few additional protected classes that are added, and maybe that has something to do with something in our Constitution, but I'm seeing that sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, and ancestry are added that are additional to what the federal rule states. So can you just help me understand that? Thank you.
Steve Yeager, for the record, and I could certainly use an assist from Mr. Wilkinson, but I believe those are the categories that are already part of Nevada law when it comes to discrimination. That I think the Nevada law, and he can correct me if it's constitutional or not, is broader than what's federally protected. And so I believe that's why it was drafted in that fashion, was to reflect what sort of the traditional way we talk about the protected classes in the state versus the federal government. But Chair, if you'd allow, it's always good to see you, Mr. Wilkinson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Speaker. You're correct. That's why it's drafted that way.
Thank you so much. Our next question is from Assemblymember LaRue Hatch.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Speaker, for joining us today. I see you gazing longingly in the window sometimes.
Always.
So I really appreciate this bill. As a history teacher, I speak to my students about racial covenants and redlining and a lot of historic explicit practices that we're trying to move beyond. And so I appreciate the intent of ensuring our folks are protected no matter what. My question is just, I wonder if you could speak to the due process protections for all parties that are in this bill. It seems to me pretty measured, but I would love if you could just speak to those protections.
I forgot to turn my microphone off. Yes, I'm often looking in here longingly. Steve Yeager, for the record, I do love the Ways and Means Committee, so don't let anyone tell you otherwise. But I do miss being in here sometimes. There's a lot of math involved in that committee.
Speaker, do you see that perjury sign down there on the...
Is unlawful to knowingly misrepresent any fact when testifying. Okay. I love both committees equally. How about that? To your question, Assembly Member, there's due process involved in this, right? And so whether you're going through the Equal Protection Commission or whether you're going through court, I mean, the bill kind of builds in some due process there, right? Because first of all, I mean, overt discrimination, discriminatory intent, that's usually pretty easy to prove. There's usually an email or something that says something very obvious. But when you're talking about disparate impact, the complainant has to prove that it actually or predictably results in disparate impact. So that's a burden of proof right there, right? And so that has to be met, I would think, before you can even proceed in the case. But there is in Section 1, Subsection 2, you see there that it says there is no liability for discriminatory housing practice if based on evidence that is not hypothetical or speculative. So again, you have to have like actual real evidence, but there's an out there, right, where if there really is the strict scrutiny standard that there is a legitimate need to be able to do this and it meets interest, and it's the least sort of impactful way you can do it. So whether you're in the Equal Rights Commission or the court, there's going to be sort of that standard, right? And the attorneys who practice in this space too, I mean, they know this area really, really well. So, I don't want to give you the impression that you just file a complaint and all of a sudden you're going to be protected. I mean, you do have to meet a burden of proof, and the disparate impact standard is a harder burden of proof to me because you don't usually have that smoking gun email or statement where someone is being overtly discriminatory, but it would play out through any other legal process, and ultimately whether it's a judge, probably a judge more than a jury in these sort of cases, but a judge would have to decide whether that burden is met. So you get your day in court to complain and you get your day in court to defend.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Urick.
Thank you, Chair. Good to see you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate you taking our questions. I'm going to confess, by the way, I appreciate the offer, the effort here of trying to combat against discrimination. My question is, and my concern is potentially, I don't know how these cases are prosecuted. So it looks like we're going to be imposing liability on somebody even for lack of intent just based on an outcome. What sort of liability is imposed? Because again, I don't know how these cases are prosecuted. What are the remedies that are available to somebody where this disparate impact has actually resulted? And then I'm thinking, for example, with like a smaller landlord that might have had a neutral policy and didn't really understand. Is there any notice that they're given? Hey, this is resulting in a thing, and given an opportunity to correct that, or is there just liability and damages? So if you could just help me understand a little bit better, I'd be grateful.
Steve Yeager for the record. I'm going to be candid. I don't have a great understanding of the Nevada Equal Rights Commission process, so you'll forgive me. I don't want to give you bad information about how that process works. But I do know from being in court, right? I mean, hopefully in an ideal world, people are speaking before a lawsuit ever gets filed. That doesn't always happen. But I think, that would be sort of number one, and you're put on notice if you actually get sued. And I think there's always an opportunity there for the parties to be able to work it out. But the way that I see the language in NRS 118-120, they talk about injunctive relief or damages. So, I think what you're more likely to see in cases like this is, and it's probably going to be a more corporate landlord, to be honest, right? They're going to enact some sort of a policy with their tenants. Are going to put out a memo saying this is a new policy we're adopting, and someone's going to say that doesn't sound right. And then there's probably an injunctive suit filed in court. And of course, if you win that, it's just you can't enact the policy. There are not really damages that come with that. It's just the policy would not be enacted. But I think, if you're suing for damages, that tells me you've already been denied housing or you've already been evicted, and any damages that would otherwise be available to you under the law would be available in that circumstance. So whether that's specific performance, you got to let the person back. I don't know if they want to go back, but there may be damages associated with finding a new place to live, or if there were expenses that were incurred with having to move out and get evicted. So there's really no limit on what those damages would be. It's just whatever they're civilly. And on the Nevada Equal Rights Commission, I'll just have to get back to you on what their ability is. I imagine it's pretty similar, that they're sort of quasi-judicial in nature, but I'm not super familiar with their process. And so hopefully that helps answer the question. And I think the judge, of course, or if it were a jury trial, would have the opportunity to decide what are the appropriate damages in this case, and that'd have to be based on evidence.
Can I follow up with just a quick
Sure.
thing? Thank you for that offer. I was just really trying to understand. You don't need to get back to me. I'll do some research and take a look at it, and I appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Ordlicker.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing this bill. I want to follow up on the source of income. As you indicated, Brad and Speaker, where it's not a specified class, but as I read it, if you have a policy on source of income and it has a disparate impact on the basis of race or sex or other protected classes, your bill would capture that source of income discrimination. Am I reading that correctly?
Steve Yeager, for the record. Perhaps. I think, you'd have to make the case, right? But I think somebody could say, if you have a policy based on source of income, and if it results under Section 1, 1B, if it results in an actual or predictable disparate impact on one of the protected groups, then I think you could make that determination. So that would be an available option. It's just not expressly listed as a protected class.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Gray.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. I'm a simple guy, not a lawyer. Don't pretend to be a lawyer. Would there be any way to do a catch-all so we're not having to list each protected class as they come up and just say that, housing will not be discriminated upon, housing decisions will not be made upon anything other than objective criteria such as creditworthiness, former landlords, so you build a whole, former landlords' recommendations, so you build a whole profile of the type of tenant they are?
Steve Yeager for the record. I suppose you could do that. It's not what this bill does explicitly. And, I think the reason we sort of usually list these out is I think it's probably more helpful for the landlord to know what they can't do, to list it out explicitly. There have been questions before, and, for instance, national origin, I think, is a more recent addition to the protections. And so there was a time when you could discriminate based on national origin. So I think it makes sense to have it here in the context of what this bill is trying to do. I think I understand what you're saying, but I think that would probably be best left for a different bill about housing. And there's some intricacies there, as you folks know. I've heard a lot of housing bills, but I think that's why it's listed out here. Is it's just sort of nice to have a list for people so they can go to the statutes.
Yes.
Thank you for that explanation. Yeah, it seems invariably that we always miss somebody. And I know veterans that are discriminated upon for various reasons, especially disabled veterans where modifications have to be made. But nobody should be discriminated against for housing for any reason, unless they don't pay, can't pay, whatever the situation is.
Steve Yeager for the record, I agree with that statement. Nobody should, but we know what happens. That's why these cases end up in court, and that's why we have folks like Legal Aid who get these cases. And so, until we reach that more perfect union and actually evaluate people based on the content of their character and not other factors, I think we have to have these laws. But I long for a day when we don't have to have these and people will just do the right thing.
Thank you so much. Our next question is from Assemblymember Roth.
Thank you so much, Speaker, for the presentation, and thank you for this important piece of legislation. I spoke earlier this week on one of my bills about some of my experiences as a legal aid attorney, and one thing that I would often see is how helpful this would have been in state law, that extra protection for, especially in cases of people with disabilities. And so I really appreciate that. But just want to clarify, this seems like a very simple bill to me, but I'm not supposed to say that, I know. But just to be clear, this is currently in federal law. This is a protection that we are putting in place because we are seeing consistently that the current administration is rolling back protections that we have been benefiting from for quite some time. But also, this has been upheld, this standard of disparate impact has been upheld for housing cases by the Supreme Court, correct?
Steve Yeager for the record. Yes, I think you did just kill my bill by saying it was simple, but hopefully not. You're right about that. So it's in federal regulation now. The only difference, as we talked about in this bill, is we have a couple additional protected categories because that's how we do it under state law. But you're exactly right. There have been Supreme Court opinions upholding this standard. Now, we can get into a whole discussion about stare decisis and the rule of law and predictability, but I think we all know that we're living in a world that's unpredictable at best. So there's no prediction what a future court would say, right? And to be honest, if a future Supreme Court says we think this is unconstitutional, this would not be enforceable in our state law. But until that happens, this is constitutional. And if it comes out of federal law, it'll be in state law. As I mentioned before, the opinions of those who authored Project 2025 is that this is unconstitutional. So am I going to be surprised if there's a legal challenge that gets sent up to the federal courts to challenge this and give this iteration of the U.S. Supreme Court the chance to weigh in? No, I won't be surprised at all. I just hope they continue to uphold it because, as you noted, I think it really does protect folks who don't deserve to be discriminated against when trying to find housing here in the state.
Thank you so much. And with that, I will go ahead and open it up for testimony. We will begin here in Carson City. Anyone wishing to testify in support of Assembly Bill 480?
Good morning, Chair Miller and Assembly members. Angela Knott on behalf of the Washoe County Public Defender's Office and the Washoe County Alternate Public Defender's Office. When we presented early on in the session, we talked about the sequential intercept model. And what it basically is a way to keep people out of the criminal justice system. We want to try to get to people before they enter the system. We discussed resources, and one of those resources was housing. Housing is very important to people, and housing is very important to our clients and potential future clients that we don't want to have in our system. AB 480 will positively impact our clients who face numerous hurdles of discriminatory practices. This is a step in changing this discriminatory practices and potentially providing more housing opportunities and leading to more stable and safe environments. We want to create an environment where people can have safe and affordable housing and not end up in our system. We strongly support AB 480. Thank you.
Paloma Guerrero, PALOMAGUERRERO, on behalf of the Clark County Public Defender's Office, and will ditto the Washoe County PDs. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in Carson wishing to testify? I also don't see anyone in Las Vegas, so broadcasting, will you open the lines?
If you would like to testify in support to Assembly Bill 480, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you'd like to testify in support, please press star 9 now.
Could you speak closer to the phone? We're having trouble hearing you.
Sorry about that. Good morning, Chair and committee members. My name is Jessica Munger, MUNGER, representing Silver State Equality, Nevada's statewide LGBTQ+ civil rights organization, and we're in support of AB 480. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next caller.
There are no other callers wishing to testify in support at this time.
Thank you. Then I will open it up for opposition testimony here in Carson City. Anyone wishing to oppose? Not seeing anyone here in Carson City. Not seeing anyone in Las Vegas. Broadcasting, will you open the lines?
The public line is open and working. There are no other callers to testify at this time.
Thank you. Then I will open it up for testimony in neutral here on Assembly Bill 480 in Carson City. Not seeing anyone? Not seeing anyone in Las Vegas. Broadcasting, will you open the lines?
Chair, the public line is open and working. There are no other callers to testify in neutral at this time.
Thank you. Then I will welcome Speaker back up for any final remarks.
Steve Yeager for the record. Just want to say thank you to this committee. We're going to have a lot of housing bills this session. We've already heard a lot of housing bills. I know we have a big housing bill from the governor. That's a very, very long bill, but I think this is a piece of the equation. Am I going to tell you it's the most significant, important piece of the equation? Not globally, but it might be to the person who's going to lose their housing due to policies that have a disparate impact. So I would ask this committee to consider this as a piece of the puzzle. We have a lot of other pieces we've got to figure out this session. Our constituents are counting on us to do that, and I believe that we will. But in the meantime, really honored to be back in front of this committee. Thank you for all of your questions and thank you for all of your hard work, and I wish everyone a great weekend. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Speaker. And with that, I will go ahead and close the hearing on Assembly Bill 480. The last item of business we have today is public comment. Just a reminder that public comment is not to comment on the bills that we heard today, but for comments on anything else under the purview of our committee. So we will go ahead and begin here in Carson City if there's anyone wishing to make public comment. Not seeing anyone? Not seeing anyone in Carson City. Broadcasting, will you open the lines?
The public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Thank you so much. Then I will go ahead and close public comment. And with that, concludes all the business before us for today. With that, I see all the eager faces looking at me for which time we're going to start on Monday. And so we will begin at 9 a.m. on Monday morning. This meeting is adjourned.